Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. I have a lot of very unusual viewpoints on things. Politics, religion, theology in general. I've earned them over a long lifetime. Most of them aren't what you would call mainstream. I don't like the mainstream very much. The mainstream is composed of a lot of arguing these days. And arguing isn't a really good way to build a foundation for thought, rational existence, which you'll never be able to tell by any 5 minute period on social media. Good heavens, just look at some YouTube comments. Hopefully, not the ones down here. And by the way, please comment. Like, comment, subscribe, YouTube stuff. I thought I would discuss some of the foundational material that forms my personal philosophies. They're not where most people get things from. You'll recognize some influences. Just a lot of them you're going to ask yourself if a rational person would really have those as a part of their personal philosophy. I can remember media influences on me a very long way back. I like to tell people that I was raised by a Zenith 28-inch television. I was raised by my mother, Ellen, who is a wonderful woman, very strict, and never let me get a compliment that I didn't friggin' deserve. But that Zenith 28-inch television was kind of important. I learned how to drive when I was 4 years old. I didn't do it right because I learned how to drive from a show called Speed Racer. It's one of the first Japanese imports. Tale of a young man from a racing family who raced around a lot in a car equipped with buzz saws and automatic jacks. It was bulletproof, which is a good thing because for a race car driver, he got shot at a lot. But he always found a way out of his problems. He always dealt with problems the way they needed to be dealt with, usually by rapid firing a Winchester lever action really fast, like machine gun fast, because he had the hand action down, working the lever. He also knew Kung Fu, and when a bad guy was making his life miserable, the bad guy got thrown out of a fast-moving car to land on his head and die in the street. Okay, maybe I got some of my philosophical background there too. Then we move on to a lot of television shows. Get Smart, F Troop. There were a lot of comedies in my past. The Carol Burnett Show, Hogan's Heroes. I learned a lot of this material at a time when the developing human brain has a hard time determining the difference between what is fantasy and what is real. Those were my friends. The Little Rascals were people who just lived on the other side of the television screen. I knew Larry, Moe, and Curly. They were friends of mine. They invited me to watch them make canapes for that party every other week, my entire life after school. Battle of the Planets, also known as G-Force or Gatchaman or Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, if you're looking at the original Japanese. The thing of it is at the same time that I was absorbing all of this into here and into here, I was going to Sunday school every week. I got all the Bible lessons. I was not a good Sunday school student because I asked the questions that you're not supposed to ask because I conflated the information that I got from Speed Racer and Get Smart with the information that I got from the Gospels or the stories of Moses. Jesus was a superhero. Jesus wasn't a very good superhero. He had this really, really awesome set of shticks, but when it came to defeating evil, his strategy was to die and come back. And I'd seen Superman and Batman and even Aquaman handle the whole superhero thing a little bit better. You beat evil by punching it out. I'm going to say two things now. They're both important notes. One of them's a bit of a tangent. In my conflated view of superheroes and Bible stories, Aquaman was a better superhero than Jesus. Here's the second thing. Here's the tangent. Aquaman's not a bad superhero. Aquaman gets a bad rap, mostly because of really bad writing in the Justice League Super Friends show from the 70s through the 90s, where every single episode had to include special material to make Aquaman relevant. They could be fighting people on the far side of the galaxy, and Aquaman still had to go save people on a boat because talk to fish, only power. Aquaman's an awesome superhero. I'm not in the Aquaman sucks camp because he can withstand the depths of incredible ocean pressures, and he can communicate with most sea life, a lot of which is really huge and terrifying. He can talk to sharks. I'm sorry, sharks are terrifying, and they do what Aquaman says. That automatically makes Aquaman kind of more awesome. Sorry, tangent. I'll go back to what I was talking about. The stories of the Bible, though, even though a lot of them were kind of crammed into the superhero and spy models that I built in my head, that information got in there. I was raised in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod tradition of Bible education, and a lot of their Bible stories are misapplied when it comes to teaching actual biblical truths. Then, of course, I grew up and did some work in the church, got my bachelor's in religious education and my Director of Christian Education certificate, and learned a few of the ways that the Bible is misapplied. A lot of my personal views of how people should be treated and how society should work do come from a biblical model, which is a problem because the biblical model is one of the currently most poorly understood and certainly most poorly represented models that we have. Case in point, story time. The Good Samaritan. Now, a lot of people know the parable of the Good Samaritan as told by Jesus. A man is walking on the road when he's attacked by thieves. They beat him and leave him mostly for dead and take everything that he owns, and they leave. He's on the side of the road, pretty much just a few seconds away from... A priest comes by. Priest looks at him on the side of the road and says, "Oh boy, it's a bad situation. And he might not make it, and I've got things I've got to do. So I'm going to go and do those things because that guy, he's not going to make it." A little while later, a Levite comes by, a higher member of the church, and looks at the body and goes, "Ooh, geez, that's terrible, but I've got things I've got to do. I can't do anything with this guy. He looks like he's just about dead. I'm just going to leave him here and hope for the best." And the Samaritan comes by, and the Samaritan looks at him and says, "I'd better help this person." Picks him up, puts him across his donkey, takes him into town, gives him a room at the inn, treats his wounds, and tells the innkeeper, "If this guy incurs any more charges, you just let me know. Here, I'm going to go ahead and pay for another couple of weeks so he's good. I'll be back. And if anything happens, let me know and I'll pay for this." Which one of these men was his neighbor? To which, of course, the answer is the Samaritan. That's back up. Because on the surface, that's the story of how you're supposed to treat people. You don't leave people just standing around. If someone's injured, you pick them up and help them, right? That's being a good neighbor. You don't just walk away from someone because they look like they're really injured, especially if they look like they're really injured. You've got to help that person. You got to help them, and you've got to give your resources to make sure that they're okay and follow up and make sure they're going to be all right, right? And that's what it's about, right? No, no. Little context. Jesus is in town. People are coming up and asking him questions. A very arrogant, brash young man walks up and says, "Hey, Jesus, what do I got to do to get into heaven?" Jesus says, "Obey all the commandments." Man says, "I do that. What else do I got to do?" And at this point, I imagine Jesus gives him one of those skeptical looks because, frankly, the commandments are structured so that no one can really follow them all. Says, love your neighbor as yourself and love God with your whole heart. Man says, "Well, sure, who's my neighbor?" Jesus tells the parable. Now, the parable needs some background, too. Man's traveling down the road. He gets beaten and left for dead on the side of the road. He looks like he's not going to make it, or he's on the side of the road and looks like he might already be dead. Priest comes along and sees him. If a priest of that age and tradition touches a dead body, he's unclean. He has to go through a huge amount of ritual and cleansing so that he can do his priestly duties. If that priest touches that man and he is in fact dead, the priest has taken days of service away from his congregation. He cannot serve the people that he is dedicated to serve. He is commanded to try to remain clean. When the priest leaves that man on the side of the road, he didn't do anything wrong. When the Levite comes by, Levite has an even stricter tradition of cleanliness. He can't touch that body. He can't touch the blood. He can't take the chance of becoming unclean by touching a potentially dead body. People are depending on him to be in that state of cleanliness so he can perform the duties of his office. He will leave whole towns without the proper scriptural service if he takes that chance. He walks away, not because he was being a dick, but because that is the commands and the orders and the laws that he had to follow. Samaritan comes along. Now, we all know what a Samaritan is. A Samaritan's a good guy that stops and helps you when you're in trouble, right? No, that's not what a Samaritan is. Samaritan was a very particular nationality, a very particular group of people. One might even say a particular race of people. To the Jews of the time, Samaritans were their Nazis. These were the people that the Jews hated, rightly so. There was enmity between them. There was war. There were atrocities. Samaritan is the last person you want to see coming along. That's full-on opposite ends of the racial spectrum with a huge amount of racial disparity and hatred and discrimination involved. And that Samaritan, who by his nature, by the only descriptor we have of this guy from Jesus is Samaritan. So all we need to know is he was someone from the other side. Not only picked that person up, but paid a lot of money to get him well taken care of. It's like if you see someone you don't like on the side of the road, picking them up, taking them to the hospital and going, "Don't worry about the health insurance. We'll just give you a way to take money straight out of my checking account in case he needs anything, and you just keep taking that money. It doesn't matter. Whatever it takes to make him good." Who does that these days? No one. Jesus wasn't just saying how to tell who your neighbor is because he's the nice person. Jesus was saying, you want to get to heaven? You say you do all this stuff? You can't do this stuff. You are doomed. You are going to hell because you can't do what you need to do to get into heaven. The lighter side of that being that Jesus was there to get everyone into heaven. What can I do to get into heaven? Nothing. Sorry, you're boned. That's okay. I'll get you to heaven, says Jesus. That gets lost. That gets lost because in the Christian education that most children get through schools and Sunday schools and whatnot, the Good Samaritan's a morality play about not leaving people on the side of the road. Interesting. I had to reassess a lot of the things that I learned from Jesus and Speed Racer and Maxwell Smart, understanding that those stories were taught to me mostly incorrectly. They're convenient as morality plays. They have a good purpose as morality plays. They taught me how to be good to people. That I needed to be good to people. That you go beyond the limits to be good to people. If you watch Speed Racer, get smart, watch a lot of Knight Rider, go to Sunday school, you understand that there are individuals or groups or factions within society that want to control society, that want what they want more than they think you deserve to have it. You kind of have to see that today, that there are individuals who want what they want and believe that it is their right by dint of their financial position or upbringing to have what they want. And what everyone else wants isn't as important and should probably be discarded, downplayed, or simply taken away from them because the people who have what they want what they want and have the power to take it. I am still waiting for Jesus or Michael Knight to show up and tell these people that they're wrong. That you share, you help each other, that you don't degrade society to get what you want, but that when we all work together, we get what we want. We can all have a good life. We can all have a good society. And the model of screwing everyone else so you get what you want has been proven ineffective. It's been proven ineffective a lot, statistically proven. Michael Knight never let anyone stay in that situation. And look at how happy people on Knight Rider are by the end of the episode. Where you have groups that are attempting to oppress society to get what they want. And, I'm not using any names. I'm not talking about any specific groups. If you think I am talking about a specific group, then you probably need to search your heart for what that means. Because I'm not referring to anyone specifically. Lots of different groups think that they have the right to declare what they want to be the right thing. None of them, by the philosophies of Scripture or Glenn A. Larson, actually have that right. And people are going to react badly to this treatment. And, the Bible tells us that when someone treats you badly, you turn the other cheek. Someone takes your shirt, you give them your coat too. You walk a mile in their footsteps. You understand them. Turn over the other cheek. And still believe that things will get better. The other way I learned to deal with oppression at this level is that in 1978, a crack commando team was accused of a crime that they didn't commit. They rapidly broke out of a maximum security prison and escaped to the Los Angeles underground. So if you need them, if you can afford them, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A team. The A team doesn't appear to be a solution to current woes in society because I can't imagine that a lot of people currently in power would still be in power if we had an actual Hannibal Smith to inform them that he loves it when a plan comes together. I can't imagine that a lot of the degradation of people in other countries that we see would happen if those countries had massive Grand Prix events and speed racers showed up to all of them, because he'd have all that stuff straightened out by the end of the episode. Maybe 2 episodes, maybe 3 if you're really unlucky. Then again, if Speed Racer was solving problems, then some of the statues in Egypt would really be giant robots, and well, we're just not going to go there. In a fantasy world, in a world built upon the philosophies of the children's entertainment from the 70s and the 80s, we could see injustice happening and know that there's a whole bunch of guys in gold lame jumpsuits with flying motorcycles who are going to take care of all of this stuff pretty soon, no matter what command tells them to do, because they're mavericks and Megaforce will show up. Deeds, not words. But to the best of my knowledge, there is no Megaforce. There is no secret society for justice with a talking car and a guy who knows how to punch people to make them be good to other people. There is no crack commando team that, if you can find, can make the unions stop oppressing the truckers. There's just us. There's just us. Another staple of these philosophies growing up is that when it's just you, you've got some options. You can gather some friends around you. It's often good to gather some friends. Get that guy who maybe is into substances that he shouldn't be, and the brainy girl and the hot chick, and you're talking dog, and you drive around in a multicolored van, pulling the masks off of people, pretending to be ghosts, because fuck those guys. Pretending to be ghosts isn't cool. If you have friends who want you to pretend to be a ghost, you tell them no. You get some friends around you as you can. You find where your opportunities are and you try to make a difference. It doesn't work out so well to try and punch people to make them be good to other people. That doesn't work. Don't ask me how I know. It doesn't work. You can't just fly into a city that's doing bad things to people in that city on your flying motorcycle and your gold lame jumpsuit and start lighting off rockets off the front of your motorcycle until people decide to be good to other people. The only thing that we can really do to make people be good to other people is be good to people. The parable of the Good Samaritan is a lesson in blowing that out of proportion, completely blowing that out of proportion. Not doing something that we see as uncaring just because it's uncaring, but we all have things we need to take care of every day. We can't just be pulling dead bodies off the side of ditches because we got to go to work. We got a family. We don't want to get involved in that. That's not just part of a parable south of the border right now. That's life. That's every day. You don't want to pick up someone that the cartel dumped there because the cartel will come after you. Right or wrong, you're protecting the people around you when you do that. We have a real problem because we're not being good to each other. Let's start with our social media. You find something you don't like and you vilify it. You take them down. You constantly hammer whatever piece of information shows up that verifies your bias, no matter how vicious, no matter how stupid, no matter how questionable the source. Let's share that. Let's post that for ourselves. Let's make sure everyone sees how much people hate the stuff that I hate. And we need to not do that. We need to not do that. We need to be a little bit more Good Samaritan like. And that's hard. That's really hard. We need to see the people that we like and see the people that we don't like and have the same kind word for both of them. We need to enter a situation with a smile. We need to greet people friendly. Michael Knight was polite to everyone that he met, whether he knew he was going to have to punch him in the face later or not. Jesus was polite to everyone that he met, aside from a couple of people running tables outside the temple. That didn't work out so well. But just common courtesy, just looking at both sides of a situation, just trying to understand, are those people really as evil as I think they are? Are they really as evil as someone is telling me they are? Or are they reacting to something else? Is there a bigger situation here? Have I discounted something because of my affiliations or my upbringing? Have I ignored people who are doing the bad things? Have I assumed people I don't like are the only bad ones? I can't do that. That's not how I was raised. I talk a lot about the television shows and the Sunday school, but none of that means a lot without the framework that that information was poured into. I mentioned my mother at the beginning of this. My mother is a wonderful person, Nebraska farm girl, born and raised. My grandparents were on my mother's side still some of the most incredible people I've ever known. Founded a family that has spanned 7 generations in one house. My father had a very hard life. He did not have an easy upbringing, but oh my lord, that man was courteous. That man had a smile for everyone that he met. We said goodbye to my father January 1st, 2011. And his examples and his voice still guide me, especially what I say here. We love movies. We love the movies of the 80s. He helped me get into gaming, and he laid down the law. You're good to people. Father was a former Marine, a manager at McDonnell Douglas. He took care of his people, all of them. He knew that you treat people right until they give you a reason not to, and then you keep treating them right because then they have no idea when the right hook is coming. My parents gave me a really good background in being right, being good to people, treating them the way that they deserve to be treated, and everyone, when you meet them, deserves to be treated with respect and a smile. My father also had another motto. It's on a plaque in the hallway. I pass it 15 times a day. The man who has no more problems to solve is out of the game. So, at the moment, while I'm throwing myself the problem of helping people to be good to people, I figure I'm going to be in the game for quite a long time. So if you meet me, expect a smile, shake your hand, let's have a coffee or something. And if I have raised any questions, ask me. Ask in the comments, ask me on Facebook, Scott Quorum on Facebook. Find me at a con, buy me a cup of coffee. Or if you're down on your $5, ask me for a cup of coffee. I'll probably get you one. And we can talk. I'm Scott Quorum. This is what matters to me. I'll see you next time on Matters of Decorum.